Hi, my name is Ilma and welcome to my channel. I have been posting Christian blogs 13 straight years every day. Today I'd like to share 1 Corinthians 11 verses 1 to 9. Here is the Word of God. Now I commend you because you remember me in everything and maintain the traditions even as I deliver them to you. But I want you to understand that the head of every man is Christ. The head of a wife is her husband, and the head of a Christ is God. Every man who prays or prophesies with his head covered dishonors his head. But every wife who prays on or prophesies with her head uncovered dishonors her head, since it is the same as if her head were shaven. For if a wife will not cover her head, then she should cut her hair short. But since it is disgraceful for a wife to cut off her hair or shave her head, let her cover her head. For a man ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God, but woman is the glory of man. For a man was not made from woman, but woman from man. Neither was man created for woman, but woman for man. 1 Corinthians 11, 1 to 9. Here's my poem. The head of man and woman. When God created man, he gave him dominion over creatures. Man was supposed to steward all of God's creation. God made a woman so that she could be a man's helper. So she is to submit to her man because he is the leader. Man's head is Christ himself, so he must submit to his Lord. The woman is under the authority of her husband and not of the world. Here's my commentary. In this letter, Paul explains the concept of leadership and authority. He points back to the beginning of time when God created the world and human beings. It seems to me that he was explaining this to the Christian church in order that they won't put him on a pedestal. Instead, he points to the purpose of why God made man and woman. If you go back to Genesis 1, we can recall how God created all things in a sequence. Each day, he made something different from the day before. God was pleased when he finished all creatures, but was very pleased when he made man. Even though he made both man and woman in his own image, as verse 27 says, what Paul is emphasizing here is the order of creation and also the purpose why they were made. Man was made for God and woman for man. That is the order. God is the head of man. The man is the head of the woman. Reflection. Why do you think Paul points out God's concept of order in this letter? Well, in the Corinthian church, used to be infested with pagans, with idolatry, with all kinds of different small letter gods. Now, Paul points out to them the creation, how God created man, because God is a God of order. He's not a God of chaos. So God has a purpose why he put all this different creation in such order. But specifically, he made man to take dominion over all the things he created, living things and non-living things. So in other words, we are stewards of the whole creation of God. But a woman is created purposely to be the helper of the man. So if we understand this order, it doesn't mean hierarchy. It doesn't mean that a man is higher than a woman. It only means the order of creation. So God was created man first, then the woman. So the woman came from the man, from the ribs of the man. So in other words, that the woman is subject to the man, while man is created by God, so man is subject to God himself. but it doesn't mean so. In other words, but I think there would be a danger if a husband is ungodly, and the husband is trying to control the woman. This has nothing to do with control. This is something to do with authority. This is something to do with the order. So so I think even in churches, leaders, elders are usually men. If you go to the book of Timothy and the book of Titus, it explains the qualifications of a leader, and usually it's the man who leads, because when you are an elder in the church, the man is under the authority of God, so the woman must be under the authority of the husband, who is the spiritual leader of the family. So it's important for us to recognize that this is not just about wearing a hat or something else, but this the later on in the next part of this chapter, it will explain the head coverings. But I think the concept behind these head coverings is authority and who is responsible for whom. In other words, who leads who is the steward of who. So it's important for us to recognize this, because then we know our boundaries, and we know like a woman who does not like a husband leading a woman who does not know God is very confusing for the woman, because now she doesn't have any spiritual leader in her family, because that man doesn't know God. So it's important for us to recognize in those cases, then if you're a woman and your husband does not know God, then you are straight head to God. But also God has provision in 1 Corinthians 7 about how to deal with unbelieving spouses, that you submit to it didn't say submit to man it says submit to man in all things. It didn't say submit to man who are only godly. It says submit to your husband in everything. So because if you don't submit to the husband, you are also liable to sin to God. But if you submit to your husband and your husband doesn't follow God, then he is responsible for that and for you. So I encourage you to reflect on these following verses. This is very interesting, because it makes us see why it's important for us to recognize the order of creation, not necessarily control over one gender to another. Thanks for watching. Please put in your answers on the comments below why you think Paul points out God's concept of order in this letter. I hope you subscribe to my channel on YouTube so I could make more videos. And please, if you haven't seen it, I have done over 4,000 videos, as I was been doing this daily for 13 years. Just type on YouTube or Google search ILMA'S Poem Devotional. Have a wonderful day.